Chapter 14. Amelia. He's engaged. Those words kept ringing in my ear. Nina waved her hands in front of me, snapping me out of it. I gazed up at her and she smiled as she finally got back my attention. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I mean, you seemed lost a while ago." I cleared my throat. "Yes," I said dryly. She stared at me for a moment in disbelief, before looking up at the already cloudy sky. "Let's get you inside before you catch a cold or something. Can you do me a favor and pull me up? My butt feels numb," I said. She laughs before standing up and extending her hand to me. "Why didn't you just tell me you were cold in the first place?" she asked while pulling me up. "I really wasn't," I said, making her roll her eyes playfully at me. "Come on," she said, gesturing me towards the door. Silence. "How long has Damien been engaged?" I asked after a while. "Why do you care so much, Amelia? After all, you are just his surrogate and nothing else," my smart subconscious reminded me. "Not long. They were supposed to get married immediately after his trip to Hong Kong, but that was before the accident happened," she said with a sad tone as she ushered me out the lawn. I followed her behind in silence as we began to gradually walk down the stairs. They must really love each other if they plan on getting married. "Can I ask you a question?" I spoke up as soon as we stopped walking. She turned to look at me with a mischievous smile on her face. "Let me guess, you're wondering why they didn't just use Kim instead," she said as if she read my mind. "Am I really that obvious to everyone?" I nodded. She scoffed. "Who knows, probably Kim didn't want to ruin her perfect bikini body," she said, rolling her eyes. "Who cares anyway?" She snorted. "She seems to carry a lot of hate for this Kim lady." "Can I ask another question?" I chirped in. "She seems to know a lot about the Greys and everything that happens around here. I mean, another question aside from the one I just asked." She nods. "Go on. What about Mr. Grey, I mean Damien's father? What really happened to him?" I asked. I had heard a rumor sometime that he had disappeared immediately after Damien's accident. She stepped closer to me. "There are a lot of things you don't know about the Greys, Amelia, and for someone who has been here long enough, I will advise you cut down with the curiosity because it won't get you so far around here," she said, and I swallowed thickly at the intensity of her words. "Trust me when I say you're better off not knowing anything." I gave a slight nod. She smiles. "Let's go watch some TV. I heard the repeat of The Bachelors is on," she said, ushering me towards the living room. Nina grabbed the remote before we slopped onto the really soft and comfy sofa. "Give me a minute," she said, skipping through the channels. I took my eyes around the room as my mind began lingering on her words. What other secrets could the Greys probably be hiding? What must have happened to Mr. Grey? I wonder how long I would be able to hide my curiosity before it explodes and I go prying again. Suddenly, I heard loud footsteps emerging from the hallway. I turned my eyes towards the doorway to see a dashingly suited Lucas entering the living room. "Hello, ladies," he said, motioning towards us with a boyish smile on his face, one so alluring I couldn't help but smile back. "Hey." "Hey, Lou," Nina chirped in with her eyes still glued to the show. "I've never understood why people watched The Bachelors. I mean, the show is pretty much staged from the beginning to the end." "Can we talk?" he asked, taking his eye swiftly towards Nina. "In private," he added quietly. I turned to Nina and noticed a smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. "Go on already," she shot playfully. I chuckled as I stood up from the sofa. He smiled and placed his hand on my lower back, ushering me towards the empty balcony. "I must say you look very lovely today," he commented. "Thank you," I responded softly. He pulled out a seat, gesturing me to seat. "Thanks," I mouthed. He loosened his tie a bit before turning around to take. Chapter 15. Amelia. "Are you feeling any sort of pain?" the doctor asked. Dr. Jones, the Greys family doctor, stopped by the house this morning to check on me on Mrs. Grey's request. I was laid back against a chair in an unfamiliar room that has several medical appliances. You could easily mistake it for a clinic. I shook my head, answering her question. She nodded. "What about rest? Are you having any trouble sleeping?" she asked, checking my pupils, first the left eye then the right. "You clearly are," she said, pulling away. She placed back her tools in her bag before taking out a prescription notebook. Let's try temazepam, it will keep you relaxed and help you sleep much better. She said, scribbling the prescription on a notebook. It should be taking twice daily. I nodded. Okay. She ripped the paper off and passed it to me. Take care, Amelia, she said with a smile before walking out the door. Thanks, doctor. I smiled appreciatively and watched her leave the room. I let out a light sigh before standing up from the chair and making it out the medical room. I stride along the empty hallways trying to find my way back to my room. A sudden chill passed through my spine as my eyes landed the door, which I am quite familiar with now. Ignoring it, I looked straight ahead and continued the tread to my room. I entered the room and shut the behind me. Feeling tired and exhausted, I threw myself on the bed wistfully with outstretched arms, looking up the ceiling and letting my mind drift into different places. A sudden knock on the door snapped me out of it. Come in. I sat up straight as the door swung open, revealing a man with a huge box in his hands. This just came in for you, ma'am, he said. I stood up and walked over to him. Who is it from? I asked as he handed it over to me. I don't know, I was just asked to deliver it to you, he answered. I took it from him, smiling. Thank you, I said. He simply nodded and walked away. Who must have sent this? I thought, looking at the card attached to it. This is my way of saying thank you for accepting to accompany to the event. Lucas R.I. was reading the card, grinning that I almost didn't notice when Nina walked in. An admirer, huh? She uttered, and I took my eyes up to her. She had a curious smile on her face. Who is it from? Lucas. A sleazy smile appeared on my face. She murmured amusingly. I cleared my throat suddenly. We are just friends, Nina, I said, moving and placing the huge box on the bed, opening it. I furrowed my brow. It's a dress. An elegant pink dress with some other like jewelry, makeup, and shoes. Literally everything one would need for a party. Wow. Nina let out breathlessly behind me. That's a lot for just one party, she said. I pulled the dress out the box and placed it against my body, turning to the mirror. It's gorgeous, I whispered. It was far more elegant than anything I have ever worn before. So, what's this? Do you like him? Nina spoke up. I shook my head. I don't know, maybe. He has been nothing but nice and sweet to me, I said, turning to her. Do you think he feels sorry for me? I asked curiously. I could never tell the difference. She smiled. I think he likes you a lot. She paused, taking her eyes to the dress. And I also think you should be more careful, Amelia, she said. Her words read a little worry in them. What do you mean? She shook her head. Never mind. Mama and I are heading down to the store to get some groceries. I thought you might wanted to come, she said. Of course, I will be down in a minute, I said with a happy smile on my face. Now I have received my first paycheck and running or fleeing is no longer an option anymore. I am allowed to step out of the house once in a while. She nodded and left the room. I immediately ran to the bathroom, freshened up, and tied my hair into a bun before I quickly walked downstairs to the kitchen. What took you so long? Mary snapped as soon as I stepped into the kitchen. Oh, sorry, I rumbled. Let's go, she said, and we all started walking outside. Chapter 16. Amelia. I quickly looked around, trying to spot the mysterious man. Oh, my God, Amelia, are you okay? Nina rushed to me, seeing how horrified I looked. Did you see that? I trailed off. See what? She asked, confused. Does this mean I imagined it? It clearly doesn't make any sense. A man placed his hands on my stomach and disappeared. Damn, Amelia, you're almost losing it, I muttered to myself. Regaining back my senses, I shrugged the thought off my mind and turned to Nina. Never mind, it's nothing, I said with a thin-line smile. Are you sure? You seemed pretty terrified, she said, still worried. I nodded. I am okay, forget it, I said, assuring her with another smile. She chuckled slightly. If you say so, weirdo, she teased. My phone began to ring, instantly reminding me of my meeting with Amber. Nina, I need to meet up with a friend in Paul Bakery. Do you know where that is? I asked. Yes, of course, she said, pointing at the direction. It's right after the kids' store, she said. But hurry up, Mama and James are almost through with the groceries. I nodded. I won't take long, I said before running towards the direction she pointed. I made it the kids' store and spotted the bakery store right beside it. I moved towards it and stepped inside. I looked around and finally spotted Amber in a corner engrossed to her phone. I smiled and moved further towards her. "AMB," I whispered, and she glanced up instantly at the sound of my voice, her eyes lighting up at the sight of me. She uttered mistily, rushing to me and pulling me into a hug. "I was so worried about you." I hugged her back before breaking away, seeing we were creating a scene. People were now staring strangely at us. I pulled out a chair and sat down. She turned around and did the same. "How are you?" I asked. She frowned, like a terrible friend. She started. "I can't believe I stood there and watched them drag you away with her. I mean, if I hadn't come up with that stupid idea of—" She cut herself off. "Do you hate me?" she whispered. I reached out to the table and grabbed her hand, giving it a tight squeeze. "It's not your fault, AMB. Stop beating yourself up about it. I got myself into this mess the moment I accepted it for the money," I said, giving her an assuring smile. "And I don't hate you. I know you were just trying to look out for me." She nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. There was a moment of silence between us before she spoke up again. "How are you, Em?" "I 14. Surprisingly, AMB, I am okay," I replied. "The Greys are keeping to their word so far," I said. She smiled halfly. "What about Damien, does he still hate you?" she asked. "I mean, he's not being mean to you, is he?" I shook my head. "Yes, but it's fine, I am getting used to it," I said, avoiding the "he's blind" part. "It's not my secret to tell." "Are you sure you are okay, Em?" she asked again. "We are perfectly fine, AMB," I said, referring to my baby and me. She nodded before her mouth turned into a mischievous smug "So?" I chuckled. "So? Have you?" she winked. "Amber," I yelled, realizing what she meant. "Get your mind off the gutter. Anyway, he's engaged to some Kim girl." She leaned closer, her eyes glittering with curiosity. "Engaged? Why would he want a surrogate if he's engaged?" she asked. I shrugged my shoulder. "I don't know. I heard she's a Victoria's Secrets model or something." "You mean she's a thin, spoiled brat?" she spat disgustedly. "AMB." I stretched. "What?" She obviously didn't want to mess her thin figure, so she placed her burden on someone else. I rolled my eyes, changing the subject. "How's Kyle?" I asked. She frowned. "Good, but he's been asking about you," she said. "Does he know?" She shook her head. "I assumed you might want to tell him yourself." I was about to reply when my phone began to buzz in my pocket and I pulled it out to see a text from Nina. I shoved it back, standing up. "I have to go now," I said. She got up and pulled me into a hug. "Take care, Em," she whispered over my shoulder. "Thanks again for coming," I whispered back, pulling away.